Welcome to SKC Sapna Kohli classes. This is part 2 of lesson number 4 from the book First Flight. The name of the lesson is From the Diary of Anne Frank. In part 1 of the lesson, we had read that writing in a diary was a strange experience for Anne Frank. She wrote only to lighten the burden on her heart in the absence of a true friend. She decided to share her innermost secrets by writing a diary. She named her diary as Kitty. She made her first diary entry on 20th June 1942. Now we are going to read page number 52, 53 and 54 of the lesson. Dearest Kitty, our entire class is quacking in boots. So, Anne's entire class, entire means whole class, was quacking. Quacking in boots. Quacking means it was very nervous and terrified. The whole class was very nervous and terrified. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming. Forthcoming means the upcoming meeting in which the teachers will decide who will move up to the next form. Form means class and who will be kept back. So Anne's whole class was very terrified and nervous. The reason was that the teachers were going to have a meeting in which they would discuss the annual result. They would decide who would be promoted to the next class and who all would be kept back or detained. Half the class is making bets. Half of the class was making bets about it. GN and I laugh ourselves silly at the two boys behind us, CN and Jacques, who have staked their entire holiday savings on their bet. Anne and her friend Jean laughed at the two boys sitting behind them, CN and Jacques. These two boys had put at stake their entire holiday savings. These two boys had put their entire holiday savings at stake, right? Betting their respective results. From morning to night, it's you are going to pass. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Whole day, these two boys kept discussing and arguing about their results. Even G's pleading glances. Pleading means requesting. Glances means looks. And my angry outbursts. Angry outbursts means a sudden outbreak of anger. Couldn't calm. Calm means quiet or silent them down. So Anne used to get irritated, and neither her angry looks nor Jean's pleading glances or requesting looks could calm them down or stop them from argument. If you ask me, there are so many dummies. Dummies are students who are weak in studies. If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter means 1/4 of the class should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. Unpredictable means you cannot predict about them anything in advance. So Anne's opinion about her class was that there were many dumb students and a quarter, 1/4 of the students should be kept back or should not be promoted to the next class. But according to Anne, teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. so she could not guess the results, and considers the teachers to be the most unpredictable creatures on the earth because they keep scolding the children when they are careless but still promote them to the next class. I am not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We'll make it. And was pretty confident that she and all her girlfriends would be promoted to the next class. The only subject I am not sure about is maths. She was a bit doubtful about maths. Anyway, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. So she was a bit doubtful about maths. They all waited patiently and tried to cheer up and encourage each other. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Get along well means I do well, and was quite friendly with all her teachers, right? Mr. Keesing, the old fogey who teaches maths, was annoyed with me for ages. Mr. Keesing, the old fogey. Fogey means an old-fashioned person who teaches maths. Mr. Keesing was Anne's maths teacher. He was annoyed with her. He was annoyed means he was angry with her for ages. All the time he used to be angry with Anne because I talked so much. So he was angry with her because of her talkative nature. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework, an essay on the subject, a chatterbox. When all his warnings failed to stop Anne from talking, he punished her by assigning her extra homework. He asked her to write an essay on the topic, a chatterbox. A chatterbox. So, what is the meaning of the word chatterbox? Chatterbox is somebody who is very talkative. A chatterbox. What can you write about that? I would worry about that later, I decided. I jotted down, I noted down, I wrote down the title in my notebook, tucked it, put it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. So she did not know what to write about it, but she noted down the topic in her notebook and kept it in her bag and tried to remain quiet in the class. That evening, after I finished the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. Caught my eye means I saw. I saw the note about the essay, right? So in the evening, after Anne had finished her homework, she thought about the topic chatterbox. I began thinking about the subject while eating the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on. Now, the meaning of the word ramble. Anyone could ramble. Ramble means talk or write aimlessly for long and leave big spaces between the words. Please be attentive here. But the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. So now let us understand the meaning of these lines. Right here. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. And decided to write on the topic chatterbox. She decided to write convincing arguments. Convincing means a statement made in such a manner that the people believe it. So she decided to write convincing argument for being a chatterbox, for talking so much in place of just rambling. Rambling means writing aimlessly. In place of just rambling, writing aimlessly and haphazardly. Haphazardly means in a disorganized manner. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote the 3 pages Mr. Keesing had assigned me and was satisfied. So she wrote an essay of 3 pages and she was quite satisfied with what she had written. I argued that talking is a student's trait. Trait here means quality, right? And and that I would do my best to keep it under control. So she wrote in her essay that talking was a natural quality, talking was natural to all the students, right? But that I would never and I would do my best to keep it under control, and that she would try to control herself from talking, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there's not much you can do about inherited traits. Inherited traits means qualities, physical or mental, that one gets from one's parents. So, and she wrote in her essay that she would not be able to cure her habit, she would not be able to get rid of her habit of talking completely, as she had inherited that trait from her mother. So she wrote 2 things in her first essay. One was that talking was a natural trait with the students, it was natural to all the students. And second, that she had inherited this quality from her mother. Mr. Keesing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. So, Mr. Keesing, he had a good laugh at Anne's arguments, right? But when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, so but when Anne continued, she continued to talk through the next lesson, he assigned her a second essay. So Mr. Keesing gave her another assignment as a punishment. This time it was supposed to be an incorrigible chatterbox. So this time the topic that he gave and was an incorrigible chatterbox. Incorrigible means incurable, something that cannot be corrected, usually a bad habit, or you can say incurable. So an incorrigible chatterbox. I handed it in, and Mr. Keesing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons, and handed over the second assignment to Mr. Keesing, and things remained fine for the next 2 lessons. However, during the third lesson, he had finally had enough. However, during the third lesson, Mr. Keesing lost his patience, right? And Anne Frank, as punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled "Quack, Quack, Quack," said Mistress Chatterbox. So, during the third lesson, Mr. Keesing lost his patience and told Anne to write an essay on the topic "Quack, Quack, Quack," said Mistress Chatterbox. The class roared. I had to laugh too. So the whole class started laughing. Everybody in the class, including Anne, started laughing when they heard the topic. I had nearly, now please be attentive here. I'm underlining these lines for you. I had I had nearly exhausted. See, the word meaning of exhausted is to get tired, right? My ingenuity here means originality on the topic of chatterboxes. It was time to come up with something else, something original. Now, the meaning of these lines is that uh, Anne had already, she had already wrote a lot about these topics about chatterboxes, and so now she had to come up with something else, something new, something original, right? So my friend San, who was good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse. Verse means poetry form, right? And I jumped for joy. So and had she had written everything about chatterboxes, and so her originality on the topic was no longer there. She had written all her ideas about chatterboxes, so this time she thought that she should come up with something new, and her friend Sam, who was very good at poetry, offered to help her, and Anne was very overjoyed, right? So Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but I would make sure the joke was on him. Ridiculous here means laughable, amusing, funny. So Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on Anne with that funny topic, but Anne made sure that the joke was on the teacher. I finished my poem and it was beautiful. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with three baby ducklings who were bitten to death by the father because they quacked too much. So Anne wrote a poem, and it was a beautiful poem. And in this poem, she had written about a mother duck and a father swan who had three baby ducklings, and these baby ducklings quacked a lot. This made Father Swan angry, and he bit his three ducklings, baby ducklings, to death. Luckily, Mr. Keesing took the joke the right way. The joke was on Mr. Keesing, and he took the joke the right way. He took the joke sportingly, right? He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments, and to several other classes as well. He read it to the entire class and several other classes, adding his own comments. Since then, I have been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework. So, this incident changed Mr. Keesing's personality. He softened his stand towards Anne, and since then, Anne was never assigned any extra homework as punishment, and she was allowed to talk in the class. On the contrary, Mr. Keesing always, on the contrary, Mr. Keesing is always making jokes these days. And even Mr. Keesing started cracking jokes in the class, which shows that Mr. Keesing was a changed personality now. Now, let us discuss these oral comprehension check questions. So, the first question is, why was Mr. Keesing annoyed with Anne? What did he ask her to do? So, Mr. Keesing was an old fashioned teacher or man. He didn't like students talking in the class, so he was very annoyed with Anne as she talked a lot in the class. What did she ask? What did he ask her to do? So, he gave her extra assignment as homework, as a punishment, right? And he asked her to write an essay on a chatterbox. How did Anne justify her being a chatterbox in her essay? So, in her essay, Anne wrote that talking was natural. It was natural to all students, and secondly, she had inherited that trait from her mother, and that is why nothing much could be done about it. Do you think Mr. Keesing was a strict teacher? Well, we can say that Mr. Keesing, he was a disciplined person, right? And he did not like his students to disturb uh, uh, him during his lectures while he was teaching the students, and he wanted his students to concentrate during the lessons, and he devised different ways to instill discipline among his students, and the funny topics that he assigned and as punishment show that he was a liberal teacher. What made Mr. Keesing allow Anne to talk in the class? So, Mr. Mr. Keesing told Anne to write an essay on the topic. Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. And then she wrote in her essay about a mother swan and father swan. This father swan bit his ducklings to death for quacking too much, and this made Mr. Keesing soften his stand on Anne, and he allowed her to talk in the class. So, children, this lesson gives a message also that writing a diary helps one to be honest, because a diary makes up for the absence of a sincere, a true friend. It never deceives you and always keeps your secrets close to its heart. It has more tolerance and patience than people. Another message that is given by this extract is that teachers should discipline their students but should also allow them to retain their individuality. They should keep a balance between avoiding punishment and inspiring creativity. So that's all for this video. Thank you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.